My name is Rachel and you're watching the Rachelistic channel. Welcome back to my channel. Today's video is all about rejection sensitivity. If you're well versed in ADHD terminology, then you've probably heard of this before, but if not, then today is your lucky day. I'm going to talk all about rejection sensitivity and what it is, what it looks like, and how it relates to ADHD. So if you want to know more, then just keep watching. So before I get into the rundown on rejection sensitivity, I'm going to talk about what it has to do with ADHD and why I'm wanting to make this video. So rejection sensitivity is a trait of ADHD. It's most commonly seen in teens and adults with ADHD, and it's estimated to affect about 99% of ADHDers. So yeah, that's a lot of people. It's not a part of the diagnostic criteria or anything for ADHD, and there is no official diagnosis for rejection sensitivity, but research does show that it affects adults and teens with ADHD a lot and has a significant impact on their everyday life. Yeah, that's kind of why I wanted to make a video about it. I wanted to make this video for ADHD month, which was last month, but that's fine. It's fine. Basically, everyone pretty much knows the term ADHD. Everyone has heard of ADHD before, but I realized that a lot of people don't actually know what ADHD actually looks like. Yeah, and when people think about ADHD, they wouldn't think of something like rejection sensitivity would be a part of it. Most people, when they think about ADHD, they just think about, being hyperactive, having a short attention span, but they don't realize that ADHD also affects kind of your emotions, and it's a lot deeper than just not being able to sit still and having a short attention span. I just think it's really important for people to understand things better, especially neurodivergent people better, because there's quite a few of us in this world, and it would be nice if people understood things better. That's why I'm doing this video on rejection sensitivity, because I hope that it'll help people to understand kind of the mind of an ADHDer just a little bit better. Let's move on to learning all about rejection sensitivity. So the official term for rejection sensitivity is rejection sensitive dysphoria. But you can just say rejection sensitivity for short, or you can say RSD for short. So if you hear me saying rejection sensitivity or RSD, just know that I mean rejection sensitive dysphoria. Rejection sensitive dysphoria, because this camera flips. Okay. So what is rejection sensitive dysphoria? What does it mean? What is the definition? So the definition of rejection sensitive dysphoria is extreme emotional sensitivity and pain triggered by the perception of rejection, criticism, and or failure. So basically it's having a very strong, extreme, I don't know, whatever word you want to use, kind of emotional pain or hurt to feeling rejected, criticized, or feeling like a failure. Some of the things that trigger this emotional pain and hurt are the perception of rejection or criticism from important people in your life, failing to meet your own high standards, or failing to meet other people's expectations of you, so feeling like a disappointment, as well as being teased by others. And so all these things, these triggers, they can be real or imagined. So for example, if someone is teasing you and it triggers a strong emotional response or pain, like them teasing you, it could be intended to actually hurt you, or it could not be intended that way. They're just being silly or whatever. They're not trying to hurt you, but in either one of those situations, you will take that as them intending to hurt you, regardless of if they meant it or not. So yeah, that's what I mean when I say it can be real or imagined. Most of the time, people with RSD interpret like these benign or mildly negative social cues as being rejection or criticism. Most of the time, that's how things are being interpreted for people with RSD. So some people hearing this, they'll say, well, everybody experiences rejection and criticism and failure, and everybody has, everyone's obviously going to feel bad about that. So how is that different from, just anyone else? For people with RSD, for ADHDers with RSD, the emotional pain of being rejected or criticized or feeling like a failure is a lot more intense than it is for neurotypical people. Just in general, like ADHDers experience emotions, especially negative emotions, a lot more intense than a neurotypical person would. So when you add on rejection sensitivity, it's just all that much more worse. So, for example, if you take like getting feedback on an assignment, somebody who is neurotypical, when they get feedback on an assignment, they might feel a little bit sad that, oh, they didn't do this correctly, but they're like, oh, at least I know what to do for next time, Someone with RSD, when they get feedback on an assignment, what they see is the teacher telling them that their assignment was the worst thing that they've ever seen in their life. And they feel like that was terrible. This was like the worst thing I ever did. It's like really intense pain over something that for most people wouldn't trigger a response like that. And so with RSD, the rejection, the criticism, it might not be real, but the pain, the emotional pain that is experienced is very much so real. So what causes RSD? So the exact cause of rejection sensitivity is unknown. Like, researchers don't really know what causes it, why it happens, but they are like a few ideas. So one idea is that if you felt like rejected by a parent or caregiver or someone important in your life as a young child, then that can increase your sensitivity to rejection later in life, which I think might be a cause of rejection sensitivity. Another idea, I guess, is that genetic factors play a role. So since ADHD has such a high genetic link, like if one parent has ADHD, you will most likely have a child with ADHD, and that child will also probably have a child with ADHD. Like it's very much so genetic. Since RSD affects like 99% of ADHDers, then it would make sense that it has a genetic link tied to ADHD somehow. So yeah, those are some of the ideas on the causes of ADHD. I mean, not ADHD, of the causes of RSD, but nothing is like known for sure because there just isn't really that much research on rejection sensitivity at the moment. So yeah, if you're someone that does research on ADHD, then maybe research more into rejection sensitive dysphoria, please. Thank you. So now I'm going to move on to talk about what RSD looks like. So some of the signs of RSD are the things to look out for if you're wondering if you have RSD or someone that you know has RSD, are being like highly sensitive about the possibility of rejection, having overly high standards for yourself, and then having difficulty meeting those overly high standards, which is definitely something that I do, so you're not alone if you do it. Being easily triggered by guilt or shame, being easily embarrassed, isolating yourself to avoid rejection, having aggressive or rageful behavior towards people that you perceive to reject you. So basically, like, you become very angry or have a really intense emotional outburst when you feel that somebody has hurt you or rejected you or criticized you or something like that. Feeling an uncomfortable physical reaction to not fitting in or being misunderstood. So, like, you feel physically uncomfortable when you kind of feel like an outcast or something like that. Having self-esteem that is dependent on what other people think of you. So, you only think highly of yourself if other people think highly of you. Basically, what you think of yourself is what you think other people think of you. It's dependent on what other people think of you, if that makes sense. Having frequent and intense rumination after an interaction. So, like, after you interact with someone, you will sit and, well, not necessarily sit, but you'll sit and, like, think about, analyze, like, every single thing that was said, what they said, what you said, what their face looked like, what faces you were making. Like, you were just gonna sit and think about it for like a long time, like analyze everything. Just having low self-esteem in general, feeling anxious in social settings, experiencing relationship problems, feeling like a failure when you don't meet the perceived expectations of others, and then finally having thoughts of self-harm. So yes, as you can see, rejection sensitivity is very intense. If you experience a lot of these things, if you felt yourself saying, yes, I do that to a lot of the things that I just listed, then maybe look into rejection sensitivity more, look into ADHD if you're not already diagnosed with ADHD or self-diagnosed with ADHD. Yeah, just know that you're not alone if you do experience all these things, because again, 99% of ADHDers have rejection sensitivity, so you're definitely not alone. So rejection sensitivity has a huge effect on the lives of ADHDers. The biggest effect that it has is that it makes people with RSD avoid rejection, like do anything that they can to avoid rejection. And so some of the ways that people with RSD tend to avoid rejection are: one, avoiding certain interactions. So, like, not talking to a new person that you think you might vibe with or be friends with or something, because you don't want to be rejected, so you're just not going to talk to them at all. Or, like, not participating in your classes. Well, not raising your hand or answering questions and things like that in your classes is another kind of way that can look. So another way that people with RSD avoid rejection is by people pleasing. So in an effort to avoid rejection, you try to do everything that you can to please other people around you. Another way that they avoid rejection is by not trying anymore. So they avoid anxiety provoking activities so that they don't even have a chance to be rejected or criticized or fail or anything like that. And so some examples of that could be like someone stops applying for jobs, because then, they can't not get a job if they don't apply for jobs, if you know what I mean. Or you just give up on dating, or even in like school, you just don't try on your schoolwork anymore, because if you don't try, then you're not going to do well. So it's like expected, instead of trying and then not doing well, because then that's just like triggers your RSD, so you just stop trying. Another way to avoid rejection is by like being a perfectionist. So, if you do everything perfectly, then you can't be rejected, I guess, is kind of the mentality on that. But yeah, people with RSD can very much so turn into perfectionists. And so those are kind of the ways that people with RSD avoid rejection. RSD also affects like your body physically. because when a person feels rejected, that triggers like an anxiety response in the body. So like the fight or flight response in the body, which means like your heart rate goes up, adrenaline gets pumped through the body, your digestive system kind of stops or goes slower. So if you are feeling rejected a lot because of RSD, then that response happens a lot in your body, which isn't good for your body. And then also when a person sees a disapproving face, or yeah, when they perceive like a disapproving face, or disapproving facial expressions, that heightens activity in the areas of the brain that deal with blood pressure, decision making, and your emotions. So again, with RSD, you're probably going to be perceiving like negative facial expressions towards you like a lot more than somebody without it. And so again, that means your body is having these responses of having like raising your blood pressure a lot, and also it affects your decision making skills and your emotions, which is probably why some people with RSD, they kind of like have these emotional outbursts. As you can see, RSD, it affects a lot of aspects of a person's life, and it, again, it's like a serious thing, I feel like, that people don't talk about enough. So yeah. So finally, the last thing I'm going to talk about is dealing with RSD. I don't really have any tips on how to deal with RSD, like personally, because like the more research I've done on this, the more I realize I'm like, this is very much something that I experience on a day-to-day basis. And so I'm still figuring out kind of how to deal with it. When I was doing research on RSD, there was kind of some like mixed views on how to help or like treat RSD. Some people offer like self-help techniques or like talking to like a therapist. And then some other people said, some other articles and stuff that I read said that those don't actually help really that much, and that medication is really the only thing that helps. So I don't know. What I'm thinking is that it most likely depends on the person, but I don't know. Who knows? More research just has to be done. So some of the kind of self-help techniques and stuff that I did see were to process your emotions before a meltdown. So like try to let go of guilt, accept the emotions that you're experiencing instead of trying to like push them down or ignore them. Like just like acknowledge, accept your emotions, and then try to like move away from perfectionism. Some other tips were to try to take steps to reduce your overall stress. Just don't try to take on more than you can handle, which is kind of easier said than done. But another tip was to like assess your strengths and weaknesses. So yeah, finding out what you are good at, what you can do, and things that you might need to work on a little bit more. Another tip was to just improve healthy living practices. So eating balanced meals, getting exercise, getting fresh air, drinking water, getting enough sleep. It's kind of the same stuff that you hear all the time, in my opinion. I hear this stuff all the time. But I mean, it obviously does help with things. It does help your quality of life to have healthy living practices, but it's just like you do hear it all the time. So yes. And then the last kind of tip, I guess, that I saw was like trying therapy with a person, with a counselor or psychologist or somebody that specializes in ADHD, that knows a lot about ADHD, because obviously they will be able to understand your brain better and be able to help you come up with coping strategies that will work for you and your brain. So that's everything that I have to say about rejection sensitive dysphoria. I almost said dysmorphia, but it's dysphoria. I hope that this video was helpful and informative. Yeah, if you have ADHD, I hope that you learned something new maybe about yourself. And if you don't have ADHD, then I hope that you learned more about the ADHD brain and kind of the things. I hope that you understand a little bit better like what ADHDers go through on a daily basis. So yes. So that brings us to the end of this video. If you liked it and you learned something new, then please hit the like button so that it can spread to more people. If you have something to say, have any questions, then please comment them down below. And finally, if you like watching my videos, then please subscribe and hit the notification bell so that you know when I post my next video. So as always, stay ritualistic, or whatever your name is, istic, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.